Hi guys, in this episode of Shri series, we're going to be talking about right angle trigonometry and solving questions involving your tangent ratio. So we've got two questions A and B, and we're going to go through the method on how to solve these questions, all right? Now, before we go any further, we need to look back at the theory, and if you've been looking at my previous videos, we went through the theory on how to work out trigonometric ratios. So I'll just write this down and then we'll move on to the question. So if you look back before, we use this formula, which is so car tour. All right. And what does that mean? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine or cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right, so we're going to be using tangents to solve questions A and B. All right, so always remember that when you're trying to work out right angle trigonometry, SOHCAHTOA is absolutely essential to help you solve these questions. All right, so let's get straight into the question here. So like I said before, what is a right angle triangle? A right angle triangle is a triangle where one of the angles is 90 degrees. All right, so if you look at question A, that is your right angle triangle. And like I said before in the previous videos, always remember there has to be a square sign that will tell you that that is 90 degrees or perpendicular or right angle, depending on the language that's used in different textbooks. All right, so let's look at question A. What information do we have? We've got an angle which is 35 degrees. We've got one of the lengths which is 8, and we need to work out one of the lengths, and we'll call that x. Okay, now we know very well that is your hypotenuse, which is the longest side of a right angle triangle. Okay, now we've got 35 degrees. We need to identify which one is opposite and which one's adjacent. And if you've been following my previous videos, you look at the side that's opposite this angle, which is 35, and that is O is a different color. That is opposite. So X is opposite because it's opposite to your angle, and 8 is your adjacent. All right. So what ratio applies opposite and adjacent? I just wrote that before, and that will be tangent. Okay. So let's write down the formula and go through across methodically to get your answer. So if you remember, tan theta is opposite over adjacent because that's TOA. So tan, opposite over adjacent. And the next thing we need to do is substitute the letters with, angles with, letters with the respective angles and the lengths. All right. So what we've got here is tan 35 degrees and O is X because that's what we want to find, and A is 8. All right. So our adjacent is 8. Okay. So what happens there? X now becomes 8 tan 35 degrees. All right, so if you remember before in my previous videos, the x is your numerator, and when we're trying to work out your numerator, you multiply 8 and tan 35. All right, and like I said before, I don't know what tan 35 is at the top of my head. Off the top of my head, what I will use though is my scientific calculator to work out my answer. So I'm just going to go 8 tan 35 degrees, and my answer is 5.60. All right, so my answer therefore becomes 5.60, and that becomes my opposite. All right, so we had to use tangent. We write down tan theta is opposite over adjacent, and then we put tan 35 degrees. So in place of theta, we've put 35. In place of O, we've put X, and in place of A, we've put 8, and then we cross multiply. Okay, if you're not too sure, redo the working out. 8 tan 35, and that would be 5.60. Okay, now let's look at B. What information do we have here? We've got the angle which is 52 degrees. We've got 7 and we've got X. Now we know that's your hypotenuse, so that's the longer side, but we don't have any value given to it, so we can only focus on 7 and X. All right, now that is 52, and like I said before, the length opposite to the angle, that now becomes O, and X becomes A. All right, so 7 is your opposite and X is your adjacent. Okay, and if you recall the formula that we need to use, so we're going to say tan theta is opposite over adjacent, and what we do is we put tan 52 is equal to 7 over x. Now, if you look carefully between if you look at this stage and this stage, you will notice that the x was your numerator. And when x was your numerator, you simply multiplied a times tan 35, and then when you want to work out what is in your denominator, this is different, because what you now need to do is, if you see from our previous videos, you now need to divide. So therefore, what happens here is x is equal to 7 over tan 52 degrees. So we're going to be dividing. So what do I do there? I get my calculator and I go 7 divided by tan 52, and my answer is 5.47. All right, so that's going to be 5.47, and that would be my answer. If I'm still not too sure, I would rework it out. So I go 7 divided by tan 52 degrees, and that is 5.47. Now, if you notice, I haven't put any in units. If the unit is in meters, then we put meters or centimeters. Okay, so in summary, we had two questions, A and B, that were using the tangent ratio, and we know very well tangent is opposite over adjacent. So when you're solving these questions, you can see I've put a tick just to show you the mark. All right, so you get a formula for applying the formula. All right, get a mark for applying the formula, and then you substitute. So if you look at question A, in place of theta, you put 35, and then you put x, which is opposite over 8. And because x is your numerator, you multiply. So 8 times tan 35. If you look at B, the x is your denominator, which is your adjacent. So when you're looking at your denominator, you divide. So it's going to be 7 over tan 52. In the next set of videos, we're going to be solving questions where we've been given the lengths and we need to calculate the angle using the inverse function of your calculator. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye now.